Hi, welcome back, everybody. This is Lindsay, and this is Linda's Investing. Today, I bring you another guest from my community, Mr. Aaron. I actually saw Aaron just recently this year and at the conference of Aura in Vegas, who, since we had a lot of members there, we didn't have to actually talk to each other. So this is our chance to get to know each other a little bit more. Hi, Aaron. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I agree. It's always funny at those big events with a couple hundred people. It's hard to get as much quality time with everyone individually. So glad we're getting to do it now.
Yeah, I think it was great though. The conference was amazing. We did have a lot of time to talk to people, but for some reason we just kept crossing each other. That was the problem there. But anyways, I mean, I hope you'll go next year. I'm definitely going next year. I don't think they officially said there's going to be a next year, but we're going regardless. So,
Yes, that's my
um,
plan.
what do I wanted to ask you, like, how did you start the whole real estate thing? Because I know you're very involved right now. You have a podcast, you have a school community, but where did it all started for you?
Yeah. So the whole journey started in 2017. We bought our first primary house. We were actually living in Las Vegas at the time. So I have roots in Las Vegas. It's a big part of my heart is there. My wife and I lived in downtown area and we bought our primary house in 2017. We lived there for a few years. We actually got married in the backyard and we fell in love with that neighborhood there. And at the time I was working in the entertainment industry. I was doing concert promotion. So I was in the booking office for a large company that booked like the arenas and stadiums and the residency shows there. So it was a very active, involved job. Like 5 days a week I was in the office, and then 3 or 4 nights a week I was at shows. And it was a pretty crazy lifestyle. Very notorious industry for being overworked, underpaid, and basically, what happened is I pretty much ran myself into the ground. I picked up a lot of bad habits, and long story short, I ended myself up in an inpatient rehab for alcohol abuse in 2019. And I had to ask myself a lot of really tough questions about what I want my life to look like, what my priorities are, and what can be done differently than what I was doing. Because obviously, the life I was living was not working out the way I had hoped. And most of it was my fault, if not all of it. But what I learned was that, there was a ceiling of the traditional path that I was taking with my career, particularly in that industry. No matter how hard I worked, I was always trying to work harder, harder, harder so I could rise the ranks and make more money and get a bigger shows and just like climb a very difficult ladder to climb. And even if I worked 100 hours a week, it was never going to really get me to where I wanted to go. And so I can kind of fell in love with this idea of owning my upside, right? Which is basically like with real estate or any entrepreneurship, it's something that you have a lot more control over than a traditional W-2 job, where you get a paycheck, you have a salary for a specific role, and maybe you have a bonus plan or something like that. But if you make a $2 million for your company in bottom line, they're not giving you $2 million, right? You're getting your salary plus whatever your bonus was. And so with real estate entrepreneurship, the idea of building something for ourselves that we could actually capture that upside, that's what really drew us in. My parents were real estate investors when I was growing up. I didn't pay a ton of attention to it at the time, but I was around it. And so I was very familiar with watching their journey and the stuff they went through. And so basically coming out of that rehab stint, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that I thought had long-term potential to help my family and I get to where we wanted to go. So um, the first rental was really, it was almost more symbolic than anything of trying to do a new path, right? Like something different because what I was doing what hadn't been working. So I think that's the very beginning. I can dig in as much as you want into how it went from there.
Yeah, no, thank you for being so transparent and telling us like what you actually went through and I assume was one of your lowest positions of what you had to look, but also what a wake-up call was it for you of, trying to reevaluate your whole life and trying to get you out of that hole that you were on. And it's not easy. I work with a lot of mental health and I see it every day and I see how the recovery cannot be up and down. It could be linear, it could be anything really, but I'm glad that that was a turning point for you. And then you concentrated your energy into something else. But
Thank you.
yeah. But so you grew up a little bit around real estate. So you knew like the possibility of building wealth through investing. But you also wanted to like, I guess, set your own terms and like, live your own life and follow your own passion. I know you're a little creative too. So um, what is that creative like working from being on the entertainment to like playing some instruments to like now you're building up this whole thing, residential facilities potentially. How does the Aaron transition into fully like business mode?
No, that's such a good question. And I think about it often because what actually got me into the entertainment industry is that I'm a drummer. So I've been playing drums since I was 10 years old. I'm 35 now, so 25 years of loving music. And that was kind of my first passion. And for a long time, my biggest creative outlet. I love playing drums. I there's very few things in my life that make me feel more alive than when I'm sitting behind a drum set and playing. And so what the irony and part of what made me maybe fall into some of that spiral I described earlier was when I started working in the concerts industry, I didn't have time to play drums anymore. And so all my creativity, like the outlet that I had, that's just expression, it went away. And so I was all business all the time because I was around concerts, I was seeing all these awesome artists, but I wasn't getting to actually have any creative outlet myself. And I realized how important that was to me. Obviously, I explained what happened, right? Like I ended up in a really low position point in life, and I think some of it was that I didn't have the proper ways to channel that energy. And I share all that because the creating music and playing music is still actually very meaningful to me. I actually play a lot. I have three young kids now. I have a 3-year old and 1-year old twins, so I can't play my full volume drum set. But I got my electronic kit in the garage in the other room, and so I can play that even late at night after everyone's in bed because it's so quiet. So that's still important to me. But what I ended up doing is, the podcast and a lot of the coaching that I do, like that actually scratches a very similar itch with creativity because it's a lot of problem solving. Podcast is creative in the sense like you get to come on and like have these really rich and rewarding conversations. You get to meet people. So I think I channeled a lot of that same energy into just like the art or the craft of real estate investing. I know it doesn't sound creative or in the same way as maybe an instrument or music, but that's part of why like I'm sure I could just put my head down and go buy rental properties and not talk about it, not say anything, not do coaching, but it's actually a lot of fun for me. It's something I enjoy, and it does give me some version of the feeling that I have, when I play music. So that's a good call out. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, you heard it here. Real estate can be creative too. So you can be artsy and still be investing. So I know that one of your deals that you bought early on was a house that was being used for a residential facility. And so that opened like a whole new door for you, right? Because you were investing in long-term rentals before that. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it all happened very fast. So I mentioned in 2017 we bought our primary house, and in 2019 is when we bought our first rental. And my wife and I actually we got married in the backyard of our primary house, and we used the money that we were going to spend on the wedding to buy our first rental. We didn't know anything about rental properties, right? Like I had my parents, and basically once I decided like, oh, we want to buy a rental, like it was just this crazy energy that I had recaptured from all my time I wasn't spending doing dumb things. And I called them and they were trying to educate me on even the most basic of things. The fact that there is a difference between a primary mortgage and an investment property mortgage, like how rentals worked. I didn't know what depreciation was. I didn't know how to underwrite a property, anything, right? So we bought that first rental with very loose foundations. And it all thankfully worked out. It was about a mile from our house. So it's funny because I'm, kind of known as a long distance investor now. But the first rental we ever bought was like about a mile away. And we bought it was brandly new, rebuilt. We put 30% down so that like, it was very low risk by most standards for rental properties. It was a safe deal. And we've got a long-term tenant that actually ended up living there for almost 6 years. But I'm sharing that because 4 months after we bought that property, the agent that sold it to us called us and he said, "Hey, I've got these two homes and they're on these long-term leases with assisted living operators who provide assisted living for adults with developmental disabilities. And they're on long-term leases. They've got 5-year leases paying 40% above market rent. And the company has been renting them for the last 5 years and they intend to basically renew this lease forever." And what an arrangement. Sounded like kind of a unicorn deal. Most people, the biggest problems they have with rentals are vacancy, bad tenants, and repairs, all that stuff. But this company was actually covering all the repairs too. So again, a super low risk deal. And it was also the first time I ever saw assisted living being offered in a home. So I think we'll get to this at some point where now my wife and I are focused almost entirely on residential assisted living, but we had never even known that was a thing. I always thought of assisted living as this big, smelly facilities with the unhappy staff that's overworked like crazy and the residents all sequestered in their rooms. But this was a cool thing to see that there was a home. It was a single family house. The residents were in the living room. The staff were there. They were cooking meals in the kitchen. Just a very unique thing to discover and not something that we were expecting at the time. But it
Mhm.
happened very fast. So we went from one rental to owning three in like 6 months. So it was steep learning curve.
Yep. So you got these rentals. So you're only in charge of the actual property. You're not running the business whatsoever. You have no ties with the business. The business just pays you a regular lease. Why
Yeah, so
why
it's
was the owners getting rid of the property?
yeah, so this was a right place, right time thing for us because basically there were three partners. They weren't married, it was three just individuals, and they owned seven of these houses together as a partnership. And one of the partners, I think, had a divorce or something and needed some money. And so they wanted to be bought out. So out of the seven properties, they picked those two and they called the agent that I worked with and said, "Hey, I want to move these two houses." And he had just worked with us and gotten to know my wife and I. He saw that we're young, trying to build a foundation for our portfolio. So it was totally just right place, right time. And, things happen. I'm sure at some point in our minds, we want to keep these forever, but you never know what might change around the corner.
Mhm.
Real estate investors, like this is part of the journey too. The initial portfolio you buy might not be the portfolio you keep forever because maybe there's a different deal you want to invest in. We've actually are in the process of selling off a couple of our rentals that we were convinced we were going to keep forever, but we're going to invest that money back into this deal that we're working on now. So I think stuff changes and that sometimes you're the beneficiary like we were in that case. And other times, you know, it's uh, it's for other reasons that you don't fully understand. But there's always two sides to every transaction, right? Like for everyone that's out there hunting for deals, people are like, "Oh, there's no deals. There's never going to be deals." It's like, well, there's motivated sellers always because things
Mhm.
happen in life. And I just so happened to get that phone call at the right time.
Awesome. It's really true. There's even if you talk to the same investor like 5 years ago and then 5 years from now, they're going to be in very different positions. And the more you learn about wealth, the more that you're going to be better at managing it and then seeing opportunities and taking that risk, like you said, on the upside. But okay, so you learn assisted living facilities can be bought, it can be placed in a home. So now you have these three properties, but now you take it off state. You go all the way across to, I forgot what it was,
Washington, yeah,
Washington. But you had lived in Washington before, so you knew the area per se.
yeah. So I grew up in the Seattle area, and basically what happened was I was working in the entertainment industry. We bought those houses in 2019 and 2020, and then COVID hit. And concerts shut down overnight instantly. So my job was to book concerts. So March 14th, I remember very clearly, was the day that everything just canceled. It was that week leading up to it. I just remember watching the whole time. It's like, well, Disneyland's closed. The all the airports were grounding, like canceling flights, and
Mhm.
everything was just slow. And I saw the whole career that I thought I was building also kind of come to a halt. And we thankfully were able to persist through that, and our rentals held up well because two of them were on these long-term leases with assisted living. Those weren't going to be vacant. Like those residents weren't going to go anywhere. The
Mhm.
company was solvent. They got funding from the state, so we didn't have vacancy there. And then thankfully, our other tenants in that first rental were able to stay put. But we all of a sudden were out of jobs. We were on furlough, so we still had health benefits. But anyway, long story short, we had to quickly figure out what we were going to do. National unemployment was at 14.7%, but Vegas unemployment was at 26%.
Oh, wow.
So a quarter of the city was out of work, and there's very little additional opportunity to pick anything up. So that's how we ended up moving back to Washington because my network was from there. And so I basically had to switch industries and reinvent a new career in very short order. My wife thankfully was able to keep her job at the nonprofit she was working at. So that first they had to scale her back, but then she was able to ramp back up into it. So she was able to keep her job, and then I switched career paths and we moved to Washington. But to your point, we had to figure out like, well, are we going to sell all these houses that we bought, or are we going to figure out how to be long distance? So
Mhm.
that's where the really like comfort zone we had to push because we were self managing those rentals, but the assisted livings were largely contained. Like there was managers on site 24 hours a day. They had a maintenance staff that would help with all the minor repairs. The only stuff we would ever really get called for is big stuff like the AC or the roof or anything like that. So really low touch. And then our tenants at the other rental were also very low touch. So we said, okay, we're going to just figure this out. We're going to figure out a system. We were still self managing. Part of that, by the way, is because my parents self managed for the majority of their
Mhm.
journey. So I just didn't even think, I didn't even know any other way. Like I didn't even think about property managers. We
Mhm.
just kind of assumed that was the default. But when we moved, we ended up hiring a friend of mine to that I had worked with in the concerts industry. And we basically gave him a retainer, a few $100 a month. And we just said, your only job, we're going to pay you this no matter what. But if stuff comes up, like we want you to be the first line of defense. We just want you to be able to drive over there and check on stuff and lay a set of eyes on it before we have to call an electrician and pay him
Mhm.
$150 to go flip a breaker switch, right? And so we had that good arrangement with him, and he helped us handle the on the ground stuff, and then we did all the paperwork, and that's when we started learning all these skills like how to set up Stessa and apartments.com for rent collection, and we were just learning all those things piece by piece until we kind of started building some systems. Now they were not very good systems. It's not the stuff that I teach people now because we made a lot of pretty dumb mistakes. um, I say dumb and I shouldn't because obviously they taught us the things that we know now, but I would say avoidable mistakes is a better way to say it. And yeah, it was kind of by accident that we became long distance. But then, people in general solve problems. Like when a problem comes up, you'll find a way to solve it. And so I think even when these things that I consider to now be mistakes happened, we learned from them, and then it made us stronger and stronger. And each time we made a mistake, it sucked in the moment, and it wasn't easy to deal with, especially with all the other stuff going on in life. But um, it did give us the tools to at least kind of learn and the mindset and the confidence to be far away from our rentals, which is now our entire portfolio is the closest rental is 1,000 miles away.
Mhm.
Today that's the case.
You learned the hard way then.
Well,
No.
I mean, if you think about it, people pay 60,000, $100,000 to go to college to learn hard things.
Mhm.
And in this case, yeah, we made some mistakes that cost us some money, but at the same time, even the ones where the cash flow was, you know, we took a hit or a big capex expense or burned through our reserve, we still owned real estate.
Mhm.
We still had people paying down our mortgage. We still benefited from the appreciation, even with us making quite a few mistakes. We still came out ahead because
Mhm.
we didn't give up, and we found ways to string it all together and turn those lessons into opportunities, all that jazz.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that that's what most people are afraid of like failing and making mistakes, like you say. But if you're trying to learn anything, you will make a mistake at one point. Even if you read all the books, attend all the classes, at one point you're gonna F up. And then that's just the way of life. I mean, tell me one person that hasn't like ever failed or fall down. Like it's not people that do not fall down that are successful. It's people that fall down many times and then learn from those mistakes and those lessons from life.
Yeah, and it's hard to remember that in the moment. like right now we're doing something that's very new. We're doing ground up development. We're starting a small business. It's going to be like, a very different challenge than a lot of the real estate stuff that we've learned so far. And I have to continue to remind myself like it's okay to make some mistakes. Now, in this case, we're going to be bringing on investors, like we're going to be serving residents that are part of a vulnerable population. Like the margin for error is a lot smaller. Like I don't think the types of mistakes we made in the beginning of our rental journey, I would not be comfortable making those same mistakes in this context. But I'm glad we made some of those mistakes when we were earlier in our journey and the stakes were a lot lower, right? The financial implications of the stuff that we did that we could have done better, we could recover from. It wasn't going to wipe us out or totally put us under. So I think it was good to get a lot of that stuff out of the way so that hopefully we're in a better, more fortified position now as we're doing something with a lot higher stakes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so you bought in Washington and now you moved away from the state again, and then you start doing flips out of the state with some partners, and you opened up your school community for out-of-state investors. You have a partner, right, in that community that
I
you.
do, yes. He's also an ORAT member.
Oh, awesome. I don't think I know who he is, but I will check him out. So your partner, how did you find your partner?
So we were in a mastermind group together for almost 2 years before we decided to launch this program together. His name's Nathan Murith. He lives in the Bay Area in Marin, like just north of San Francisco, and he owns properties in two states that he's never actually visited. So I know you like to interview long distance investors, so maybe get him on the show next.
Yeah.
But he's got an amazing story and like incredible discipline. He was born and raised in Switzerland and moved to the U.S. and has worked in a series of jobs in the tech industry. And he has young kids as well. So we bonded over the fact that we had very similar circumstances. We had young kids, full time jobs, and we embraced the fact that we have full time jobs as part of our identities. And so we wanted to build a program that wasn't just about teaching people how to invest, but how to do it with very limited time. So we met together like in a small group, kind of like the one you're leading for Zuber's community. Once a week we would meet. It was four of us, and we would just go over kind of the recap of like what we got into last week, what were some challenges we faced, what are some things that we're trying to get into the next week. So it's a mix of accountability, but also just like discussion, support. Like, if somebody was looking at a specific deal, we'd look at it together and tear through it and give feedback. And so we obviously got to know how each other thinks really well. And through that, we also saw each other grow, right? So over the course of 2 years, we also like saw how each other reacted to mistakes and problem solving. And then we got to know each other at least well enough to say, hey, I could see running a business together. I don't take partnerships lightly at all. I think it's actually a very important thing to be really careful with. I'll go on a slight tangent here, right? Where I say like a lot of people they form partnerships because they're trying to solve something in a specific moment. They're trying to solve a problem right now, but they form a partnership that has a long-term implication and they're not thinking about like, well, what happens 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Like, am I still going to be as aligned as I am today? And so I think that was the benefit of us knowing each other for a couple of years. And even through the course of running this academy together, we've been mostly like in lockstep and synchronized, but like we've had a couple things we've had to work through together. And we're able to because we know each other. We try and be mature and understanding and give each other the benefit of the doubt. So I don't even know if that was the direction you were trying to take that question, but yeah, we did know each other and get to see kind of how we operate as investors and also just as people in general.
Yeah, no, I'm reading a book on partnerships right now, and it's putting like, I guess, the pressure on of like how important it is to find somebody that's going to align with your goals, and it's going to look at something that it's going to be whatever you want. Like if it's going to be a partnership for one deal or it's going to be a partnership for like many rentals under one LLC, then how that's it's going to shake you up because there's going to be things that you handle one way and the other person handles the other one. It's like actually stressful because it's like looking for somebody else to partner up with, like looking for a significant other or a romantic partner.
Yeah, and even with a romantic partner, when it's obviously a very different dynamic,
Yeah.
but I think when money's involved and decision making is involved and you're not married to the person, it's actually harder. Because you're not like you haven't made that commitment that oh we're going to be together for life. Like I think there's give and take in marriages, and like obviously there's it's never as simple or straightforward as people would like to make it sound like it is. But in a partnership where in theory one person could walk away at any given moment, I think it's even harder to stay aligned and make sure that each person is kind of honoring their own side of the engagement. And that's the other thing too, is like partnerships should have equivalent value to whatever you negotiated. So if you have a 50-50 partnership, but one person's putting in 40 hours a week and the other person doesn't even like show up to the weekly meeting, that's going to, whether it's now or 12 months from now, that person that's working super hard is going to eventually resent that other person.
Mhm.
And when that happens, it's going to be a problem. So unless that was very explicitly said at the very beginning, which it almost never is, because people
Right.
rush into this stuff and they don't take the time to like understand what things might look like in the future. So you mentioned the flip, the out of state flip. I mean, that's something where I'm still very good friends with the person that we did that flip with. And we had talked a little bit about doing the partnership, like partnering, and those are shorter term projects, right? They're meant to be 3 to 6 months, not like a 10-year type business. But we realized pretty quickly once we got into it that like our styles are super different. And a lot of the like, I'm a very systems oriented person. Like I usually I can operate with ambiguity, but I'm not. I prefer to have at least some idea of what's going on, and and she's like very creative and really good at doing flips, but not organized, right? And so I think we were in that flip for almost 6 months together, and it was a very stressful ride. It was a very stressful ride, and so I think we both like again we're still close, we still do business together, but that was an example of us, or particularly I take accountability for like me rushing into something because I thought it would work out a certain way without really thinking through like I think in hindsight I could have seen a lot of that coming, and we were just trying to like I said solve an immediate problem without thinking about the long-term implications. So I'll chalk that up to a lesson learned.
Yeah, and then it could be that you guys individually are successful, but together we just like don't mesh well. And that's okay too. Like that's totally fine. Um, okay, so now you're doing this huge deal. You bought a lot of land. You're gonna build from the ground up, and it's going to be residential facilities, right? How many rooms? How many?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little project overview. So we have right now we have 7 acres of land under contract in a suburb of Houston called Tomball, and we have it on a long escrow. So we actually went under contract in early January. So before I saw you in Vegas, we were already under contract. And the reason it's a long contract is we're using an SBA loan that's going to be able to fund the purchase of the land, all of the ground up construction, and we're going to be able to fund the majority of the startup costs through that loan as well. To fund the rest of it, we're going to be raising capital through a syndicated offering. And so this is all tons of new stuff that we've never done before. I've never done development, never done syndication. We're learning a lot of these skills as we go. And I don't say that to lose anybody's confidence, right? But it's more like we are following playbooks that come from the mentor that we've chosen to work with. So we're working with someone who's actually built these exact buildings and has run this exact business. But I'm also part of a different mastermind group where people are doing these big commercial deals and syndications and all that. And I've been a part of that group for almost 2 years now. So kind of everything we've been doing leading up to this, all the experience that I described earlier in this interview, combined with being around other people and even investing in some other deals, larger, commercial deals, has been leading up to this moment where we're now putting together our own deal. And residential assisted living, I think, is a very exciting asset class. It's a huge need in society. We're doing senior care and specifically memory care. So will be licensed to care for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. And that is not only are the baby boomers aging towards their elder years, but memory care is becoming a more prominent need, and people are living longer. So the tailwinds behind this are enormous. Over the next 20 years or so, people will be aging into that bracket, and it's just even right now, there's already a huge gap in the supply versus demand. So there's already people that need the service that can't find the service. And we're going to be building 32 beds total. So have two separate houses that are 16 beds, 16 bathroom each. We did a bunch of market analysis and research, and even within a 6 mile radius of the land we bought, there's already today 150 bed shortage. So there's 150 people that need beds that can't find it, and they're having to go further out. So we're very confident in the business model. It's something that's very impactful. I think I mentioned earlier. So my wife, her grandparents had Alzheimer's. Her father had early onset dementia. And so being able to provide a home-like environment and an alternative to that big smelly facility, something very meaningful to her and to us. So it combines everything we like about real estate, combines everything we like about what we kind of impacts we want to have. And then of course, like the financial opportunity should be strong enough that it'll allow us to live the life that we want to live, and hopefully affect a lot of other people in a positive way in the future too.
Yeah. And then you have a couple partners for this, right?
Yeah, so we have mentors that are going to be investing alongside us, which is great. So they're that I like this arrangement a lot because essentially they win if we win, and if we go down, then they don't get, they're incentivized for us to perform well.
Mhm.
They've run this exact business model. So they have homes in the Austin, Texas area. We're in Houston now. So same state, same general set of regulations and licensure. And then of course the same set of challenges, right? Running a 16-bed home with people that are, requiring memory care is not an easy thing to do 24/7. It's a lot of very challenging circumstances. You have to have full-time staff, payroll. So they're going to be great guides. We have one other partner who I met through the other mastermind, who we actually just brought on very recently. He's going to be helping. He has a healthcare background. So he's going to act as kind of our like clinical liaison. He'll help audit, a lot of the processes and make sure that our caretakers are doing everything not only to code, but also he knows how to work with people in the healthcare industry. I think that's a very unique and specific type of person, and he'll be able to understand things that we might not. And then we'll have capital partners. We'll have investors, people that come in and they're not contributing operationally, but they're contributing money in exchange for equity.
Awesome. Such a big undertaking. Are you by any chance like do you go back and forth or like, oh my God, did I just buy too much that I can handle or no?
You know, it would be it would be a lie to say that I don't have reservations, because I think, of course, like self-doubt is natural. No matter, I think anybody in the world, even no matter how outwardly confident they appear, everyone has self-doubt. And it's definitely something we grapple with. At the same time, we do feel confident because of the people we've surrounded ourselves with, the mentor we have, the mastermind groups we're in. We're in Zuber's group. We have our real estate experience. We have so many friends. We have a lot of people. It's what's that phrase, right? You are a reflection of the people you spend the most time with. Like we've put ourselves in rooms where people are doing deals like this, and that's normal. And I think that has an effect where the pods that I'm in, the people that I'm around, like when we face challenges, like so it's been a very challenging process to try and get the loan approval. We're gonna have to raise a lot of money. Like these are not easy things to do. But when I'm feeling deflated, I have people I can turn to. I have people that, have done this before that can tell me like, okay, I know it seems hard right now, but like just break it down and do, over the next 7 days, do these few things and like you're gonna catch up or you're gonna feel better. So it's a lot of hard work and it's not easy, but I would say we have the right environment around us to succeed. And so now it's just about being resilient and staying the course. And of course, there's a degree of faith and trust that we have to put in ourselves that we can do it.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part too, because there's this hashtag on a long time I heard, like, do it scare. Because if you're not growing, if you're not like challenging yourself in any way, then that means you're being stuck on the same place. That you're not learning anything, you're not evolving, you're not growing up, you're not doing anything. But any kind of things that make takes you out of your comfort zone, it's going to be scary. So hashtag do it scare. Like
I like it.
not, not to say like jump off a plane or something like that, but if you're getting challenged or getting uncomfortable, pushing out of that shell, like you're going to grow from that. And you're a capable person, and it seems like you position yourself in the best environment that you can, like you said, and you have the ability to tap into other people that have done it. And I think that's one of the things that's helping the most throughout my journey, like to talk to somebody that already has done it and then they have been doing it successfully. And then so there is like that guide and that light under after the tunnel. And you can like see it because like everywhere around you is like supporting you. And then just like school one road at a time, the community is so welcoming and the community is so supportive that you really feel like, okay, well, there's only one way and that's forward.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that community is a great example where if somebody really is struggling, I actually think that those communities are built for the hard moments, not when everything's going great. It's wonderful to be able to celebrate wins together and be, cheerlead each other and just yeah, just celebrate success in general. But in my mind, like those groups become the most valuable when you hit an obstacle. Like, hey, this house appraised for 40,000 less than I thought, and I've got a hard money loan, and like I don't know what to do. What do I do? Of course, like that's going to be a challenging situation no matter what. But if you can lean into a group that's like, oh, here's a couple of things that I've done in that situation. Here's something creative you can do. Like people are all of a sudden leaning in and sharing solutions and things that you didn't think of. And even if those solutions aren't the best solutions, just knowing that you're not alone, sometimes that's all you need to like at least get up off the ground and try and figure out what to do next. Sometimes you're going to take it on the chin. Sometimes there's going to be losses or lessons, but I think that community element, it cannot be overstated how important it is to have a group like that, and especially one where people are ethical and operating like from a place of authenticity and not just transactional, like how can I get something out of this other person. So it's rare when you find it, but I think it's a critical part of the journey.
I agree. There's so many videos and gurus out there of trying to sell you some kind of course or some kind of thing that you don't really know if they're doing the thing that they're teaching. So you don't really know their business model. So definitely something like a school, or I'm assuming your community is somewhere where people can support each other and like learn from each other.
Yeah, and to that point, right? Like I actually am very uh I'm uncomfortable with the idea of trying to teach something that I've never done. Therefore, I don't do that, right? So in our community, I don't try and teach people how to scale to 75 rental units because I've never done that, right? Like we bought our 8 rentals. We did it across 3 states. We built 3 different teams. I like I said, I made a lot of avoidable mistakes. So I think one of the things I can do is help people not make those same mistakes. We try and teach people how to do this while raising kids and while working full time, because those are things that we have the credentials that we can actually say that we did, right? I'm not going to go and try and teach something that I'm not qualified for, but I know that there are people in the situation that we were in 5 years ago that probably want to be doing something like that. And those are the people I'm trying to connect with and be able to help and serve. And then I also still like, I have coaches. I have, people that I learned for. We have this mentor in for residential assisted living. I'm also, I look up to Zuber. I follow him very closely. Coach Carson, like all these people that are big roles and role models in my life that I'm always learning too. And so I think it's important to kind of go both ways, like pay it forward to the people that are trying to do what you've been able to do, and then also continue to learn from people that are doing what you want to be doing. I think it's totally a two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming to my channel. And hopefully we'll have a big update next time I see you on my channel. And
Yes.
would be maybe, I don't know, building or some other some other things that you're experiencing at the moment, or maybe change in business plan. I don't know. We'll see.
We will see, but it was a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, thank you.